Today is Sunday, December 15th, 2024. We are halfway through the month of December. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. My name is Hunter, and in this video, we're going to be doing just a general overview of the updates for the winter forecast in this video and going over what you need to know across the United States, Canada, and North America in general. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new, like the video, give it a thumbs up down below, leave any comments, questions, concerns below, and also share this video on social media with friends, family, and anybody that you know. I definitely appreciate it. Looking here at the past 15 days of December's temperature anomaly since December 1st, it was a cold start to December across the upper Midwest over here through the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Southeast. So really what I'm saying is the central and eastern two-thirds of the country was pretty chilly to start the month of December. Compare that to out west, the western third of the country, the Intermountain West, like the Rockies, the Cascades, a little bit below normal there in the Pacific Northwest, but the Pacific Southwest, like the Sierras, down here in toward Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, we were above normal with our temperature departures for the month of December so far to date. Looking at snowfall accumulation, it's really been tied to the higher elevations, the Cascades, the Sierras, parts of the northern and central Rockies, or the Great Lakes region with the lake effect snow here so far. A couple snowstorms for interior New England, interior Northeast from Maine all the way down here into northern Pennsylvania. The Appalachians getting into some of the snow as well. But we really haven't seen those big, wow snowstorms across the Midwest or the Ohio Valley or the Mid-Atlantic yet here so far this winter season. Let's look ahead at the rest of December, the second half here of December. This is the third week of December, by the way. Temperature anomaly from December 16th through December 23rd, leading right up to Christmas Eve. We're likely still going to be in that pattern with below normal temperatures up here across the Great Lakes and into the Mid-Atlantic, and then above normal temperatures continuing out west and across the south. So that is going to be the pattern moving in towards this upcoming week. Looking here at the precipitation pattern, we're going to see a Pacific Northwest getting a lot of precipitation. So Seattle down to Portland, Northern California, continuing to see a train of storm systems from the Pacific move in as we go through the week. That will translate across portions of the international border between the northern tier of the United States and the southern tier of Canada. And then we have a subtropical jet bringing some moisture up from Texas up through the Ohio, Tennessee River Valley and toward the Northeast. That could provide us with mostly rain, but maybe a few snow events there as well. And notice a lot of the snowfall that we see this upcoming week through the 23rd will be tied to, the higher elevations, the Cascades, the Sierras, or the Northwest Rockies, or those clipper systems here from Canada across parts of the northern upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and into the Northeast, and even southeastern Canada, again, like Quebec, getting clobbered with more snow this upcoming week. Now let's go between Christmas Eve, December 24th, and New Year's Eve, December 31st. You can see where the mild Pacific air takes over across much of the country. We're well above normal across Canada and the northern tier of the United States, and it looks like a pretty active signal for precipitation. The Pacific Northwest continuing to see those parade of storms move in from the Pacific Ocean. That will translate east across the United States into the central and eastern U.S., and southern and southeastern Canada as well. Heavier snowfall line will try to shift a little bit further south, but I do think that when we have mild Pacific air, that may kind of cut down on some of the totals that we see and see more rain events across the Midwest. For example, the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic again, just like we saw in the first half of December. I think that just kind of carries over in towards that Christmas Eve through New Year's Eve time frame, and I think a lot of the snow events we see are again tied to those higher elevations or the Great Lakes as we go into that week. Let's kind of update you on the sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Right now, they are colder temperatures, and this is leaning toward a weak La Nina. So we are officially, I would say, in a weak La Nina, and it's very weak here. We kind of been teeter-tottering by, negative 0.5 to negative 1, and anytime you're between positive 0.5 and negative 0.5, you're technically an ENSO neutral. Anything below that, you're in a La Nina, or anything above that, you're in an El Nino. So what the Climate Prediction Center has updated us on is that we are likely to see if, a weak La Nina emerge and continue through the months of December here into January and likely into February. But by the time we get into March, we might start to see a transition more to a neutral, an ENSO neutral pattern as we finish off the winter season. So here is what we are looking at with the height anomalies for January. We likely will see the stratospheric polar vortex become the main driver of our weather forecast the second half of winter. I know a lot of people get caught up on, is it an El Nino? Is it a La Nina? Is it ENSO neutral? While those are important, I think that since we are in a weak signal of a La Nina or closer to neutral this winter, that's not going to be the main driver of our weather pattern. I think the MJO, I think the sea surface temperatures, and the stratospheric polar vortex will have much more weight on what happens in the second half of winter than our ENSO will as we go through the rest of the winter season. So looking here again at January, we have that signal for potentially an SSW, a sudden stratospheric warming event. That could lead to some very cold Arctic air and potentially some stretching of the polar vortex or a full disruption of the polar vortex sometime in mid-January. That'll be across the northern U.S. You have a little bit of those warmer west-southwesterlies here across portions of the Gulf Coast. So what you're going to see is we could potentially be seeing that SSW, that sudden stratospheric warming event, that could actually lead to that polar air moving down across Canada and that cross-polar flow into the northern U.S. like we just saw in the upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, and then we'll see warmer anomalies across the Pacific Southwest and the Deep South and then up the East Coast. But just want to note that even though you see orange up here, like the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic or Ohio Valley, doesn't mean that it's not going to be cold in those areas. It just means when you average all 31 days out in January, that is what you come up with as above normal temperatures. Our active storm track will be there. So we're going to see more active weather across the Pacific Northwest, across the eastern U.S. and eastern Canada, and some of these will be some bigger snowstorms that coincide with that colder air. If we can get that moisture to move in with that cold air, you could see some doozies of snowstorms in January and get caught up on the snow we've been lacking here in December. So that is something to keep in mind. Heading into February, it's a weaker signal. I think we start to back off on the stratospheric polar vortex just a little bit, and it kind of shifts off a little bit further toward the Arctic. But I think some frequent cold blasts are still possible across portions of, say, Montana or the Dakotas or even Minnesota and Wisconsin up here with that still weak signal hanging around Western Canada. That could easily drop down some colder air into the northern U.S., but the signal is much stronger for kind of a thawing month. I think February we're going to start to see some milder temperatures, just like we're going to be seeing here during the second half of December. I think we're going to be thawing out a little bit, so any snow that we did get in January may start to melt a little bit across the Great Lakes, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. Something to keep an eye on there. And we see the colder air really bottled up there toward Canada, and every once in a while maybe coming down to the northern U.S. in February. But again, it's going to be an active storm track. Could we see snow in February? Absolutely. Will we see every storm system producing snow? Probably not. We'll see probably some rain events or a mix of rain and snow as well across the Pacific Northwest, diving down here across the Midwest, and then moving up toward the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast through the month of February. Finally, let's take you into March, because March you can still see winter impacts. Notice it's an extremely weak signal. The stratospheric polar vortex really not going to be a main factor in March, I don't think. So I think really it's going to come down to the MJO phase and probably the sea surface temperatures and a lot of other things that kind of intertwine with our forecast. I think March is also going to start off, I guess, cooler across the Pacific Northwest and the northern U.S., but really kind of mild across the south and the east. So I think that's what we're going to see, and that could actually lead to an early start to our severe weather season down here in Dixie Alley, along the Gulf Coast and into the southeast. Something to watch into March. I think the second half of March could definitely present that better than the first half of March, especially if we can see some colder air moving down from Canada and mixing with some of the warmer, moist, and unstable air from the Gulf of Mexico. That certainly could set up some severe weather events down, again, across Dixie Alley, the Gulf Coast, and the Southeast. Snow events maybe further up to the north, or at least a mix of rain and snow. And I think March is a tricky month. We could actually see some ice storms, just like we saw the other day in Iowa. We could have more of those events somewhere in the Midwest, the Great Lakes, or Ohio Valley this month, as well, as we kind of see that transitional period with our temperatures, kind of that temperature roller coaster, if you will, through the month of March. Thank you for watching. Just kind of a general overview on what you can expect through the winter season. We'll be tweaking this throughout the winter season as well to get you the most accurate forecast possible. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check back often for updates. Leave any comments, questions, concerns below. Obviously, like the video if you didn't enjoy it. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their weekend out there.